A Newsmax host just recently leaned hard into survival of the fittest. Take a look.
You know, I've one thing I've always thought, and maybe you can guide me on this because obviously I'm not a doctor, but when I've always thought about vaccines, and I always think about just nature and the way everything works, and I feel like a vaccination in a weird way is just generally kind of going against nature. Like, I mean, if there is some disease out there, maybe there's just an ebb and flow to life where something's supposed to wipe out a certain amount of people, and that's just kind of the way evolution goes. Vaccines kind of stand in the way of that. Do you follow what I'm saying? Does that make sense to somebody in medicine?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What? What? Okay, look, that's Newsmax host Rob Schmitt. And wow. Wait. That's fucked up. Let's just say that, okay? It, so you're going to argue that medicine is against nature while sitting in a building talking to a camera that's also against nature. You want to talk about what's natural versus what's unnatural. Well, I mean, again, you probably cooked your breakfast this morning, didn't you? Maybe made some coffee in a coffee maker. Not natural. That's not natural either. Did you drive to work instead of walk? Better hope you didn't wear shoes, because turns out shoes, not natural. What about clothes? Well, obviously you're wearing clothes, right? Not natural, against nature. At least the ones that you're wearing. You should be wearing either nothing or an animal skin that you skinned yourself. Natural. What a ridiculous talking point. Ridiculous. Having heat in the winter, cooling in the summer, electricity in your house or in your studio, running water, a toilet, none of that's natural. But guess what? It stopped millions of people from dying of exposure or illness due to not sanitation or disease from eating uncooked or spoiled food. That's what vaccines do. They save lives by preventing people from getting seriously ill from viruses. That's it. That's it. In fact, the CDC ranks vaccination among the most significant public health achievements of the 20th century, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. The CDC also reported that over the last 2 decades, immunizations prevented more than 21 million hospitalizations, 732,000 child deaths in the United States, and translates into nearly $295 billion in savings on direct healthcare costs. So overall, vaccine's good. The vaccine's good. I don't know what else I can add to that. But wait, there's more stupid and disinformation.
Well, there are some reports that support what you're saying. There's one by Neeson and colleagues from Boston and the Mayo Clinic that shows among vaccinated populations, the diversity of different strains is narrowing. So it's going to be fewer numbers of strains. Right now in the United States, we're about 40% UK variant or the Alpha variant, and we're about 30% now Delta, which is the Indian variant. They get progressively weaker, but the diversity is changing with vaccination. And I think probably the best way to think about it is vaccines really ought to be targeted to protect the highest risk individuals. A young person like you, if you got COVID, it's very easily treatable. You get through it, and natural immunity for sure is superior.
Yeah, you know, that's you make a good point there. Again, it's like if you've got this big risk, I think it might be worth whatever it is. But if you don't have a risk, I can't comprehend why you would take something. They start learning about the heart inflammation and stuff like that. I just don't understand why it's being pushed so hard on people that are very young, and now they're trying to give it to kids.
No, those were not good points. Those were actually fake talking points. Not real, actually. In fact, he claimed the Delta variant of the coronavirus is a small amount of cases. It's actually about half of all new cases now. And also claimed that over time, the variants get weaker. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Who gave this guy a degree? Well, I was going to ask, who put this guy on TV? But we already know, Newsmax, obviously. 'Cause they're the only ones that would put a crank like that on TV. Honestly. No, in reality, look, the World Health Organization is calling this, the Delta variant, the fastest and the fittest. Yale Medicine reports the Delta variant is, quote, more contagious than the other virus strains. It is not weaker. It's better. Better at infecting people. That's what I mean by that. Not better overall. It's actually worse for us overall. It's better at infecting people. It's actually about 50% more effective than the other strain, which was also 50% more effective at, infecting people than the original strain. Wow. In fact, Yale Medicine epidemiologist Dr. Perry Wilson said, quote, Delta is spreading 50% faster than Alpha, which was 50% more contagious than the original strain. And so Schmitt also talked about the kids. Oh, if you don't have a risk. Well, everybody's at risk. But he says, I just can't comprehend why you would take something. They start learning about the heart inflammation and stuff like that. I just understand why it's being pushed so hard on people that are very young, and now they're trying to give it to kids. Okay, wait. The heart inflammation issue. Let me talk about that. If you're actually legitimately concerned about this, let me try to ease your mind a bit. All right, because hey, it is a significant thing. It is a significant issue. Yes, there are some patients that after receiving their second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, whether it be Pfizer or Moderna, have suffered heart inflammation. And that could be a very serious issue. In fact, I have some data on that. Since April of 2021, there have been more than 1,000 credible reports to the vaccine adverse event reporting system of cases of inflammation of the heart called myocarditis and pericarditis happening after the mRNA COVID-19 vaccination in the United States. So now, that 1,000. Oh man, that's obviously a lot of cases, right? I mean, tons and tons of cases of, of this heart inflammation, right? In fact, confirmed cases have occurred mostly in male adolescents and young adults 16 years or older, often after the second dose, more often after the second dose, actually, and it happens typically within several days after the vaccine. However, look at it this way, several thousand, right? Or more, I'm sorry, not several thousand, more than 1,000. How many people have taken the vaccine? More than 177 million people have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in the United States, and more than 331 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines were administered in the United States from December 14th, 2020 through July 6th of 2021. During this time, the vaccine reporting system, and this gets to a further point, right? They actually received about 5,946 reports of deaths. That's about 0.0018% among people who received the vaccine. So you got 1,000 people or over 1,000 people that had inflammation, but you had about 6,000 deaths just from people who had the vaccine. But wait, that doesn't mean it's from the vaccine. Now, the FDA actually requires healthcare providers to report any death after the COVID-19 vaccination. It is unclear whether or not the vaccine is actually the cause of these deaths. So, in total, you've got about 7,000, roughly, people out of 331 million doses of the vaccine. When it comes down to the numbers, it's an incredibly small amount of people, infinitesimally small amount of people who actually have any sort of interaction, negative interaction with this vaccine. And again, when it comes to the deaths, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a result of the vaccine. And so, that said, most patients, when it comes to the heart issue, receive care, and had received care for that, ended up responding well to treatment, getting some rest, feeling better, and getting back to work and getting back to their lives within a couple of days. So that's the heart issue. Okay, well, So there you go. Now let's compare that to the amount of deaths and hospitalizations among the unvaccinated. Of the cases that have gotten, that have increased in this country during the most recent COVID spike as a result of the Delta variant, you had 99.7% of all the deaths and hospitalizations from COVID-19 among the unvaccinated. So, I mean, that's fairly self-explanatory. All right. So my question is, of course, what'll it be? The survival of the fittest, which still, by the way, even if you survive, and nobody ever talks about this on the right, but if you get COVID-19 and you're unvaccinated, there is a chance that you will recover, but end up being left with some, medical issues afterwards, whether it be reduced lung capacity or neurological issues. These are things, again, that people don't talk about, okay? Those kinds of issues persist for the rest of your life. And so, yeah, there's a good chance you might end up with some of those issues. Or even if you do recover and you might have been a serious case, you could go into the hospital, get rack up a crap load of debt, because this is America after all, in medical debt from hospitalization, which you can't discharge to bankruptcy. And then, well, what are you going to do? Or, of course, you also might just end up fine and get minor sick, not get all that massively sick, okay? You'll have a minor case and you'll get over it in a few days or a week or so, whatever. It's really a roll of the dice. But here's what you could do. You don't have to take any of those chances. You could just get the vaccine. That's it. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.